The ugly man hung on the rope and shouted down, "Brother Bing, there is a coffin in it, but it is not bronze, it is stone. The lid of the coffin has been opened, and it is impossible to see what is inside." Zhao Wenbin heard that there was a sarcophagus on it, which greatly surprised him. So far, there has never been a coffin made of two materials, and this is definitely an exception. He glanced at the cold on the ground. He instructed Zhuoxiong, "The Zhuoxiong brothers. I'll go up and have a look. You stay below to look at the equipment and people. If there's some movement in a while, you just shout at us." Then he said to the copycat that he was going to come up. The plagiarist tightened the rope. Although I was a little stunned in my heart, but I'm embarrassed to say it myself. You can only bite the bullet. Climbed back into the cave. I squatted down next to the sarcophagus. Point a shotgun at that coffin. I thought to myself, if something pops up in a moment, don't blame me, sir, for blowing you in the head with one shot. What are you doing copying? Put the gun away. If such a small space is going to go off, it's strange if you don't hurt yourself. The plagiarist looked down. Zhao Wenbin's head has also been drilled in at this moment. He lowered his shotgun, hitched a hand, pull hard. Zhao Wenbin has already come in. Look around. It is a cave with a size of about 10 square meters. It is about 3 meters high. The stone walls around the cave are full of traces of artificial excavation. It's the same as the copy describes, except for a sarcophagus lying quietly in the middle. There is nothing superfluous. Plagiarism. You are archaeological. What do you say this cave is for? The scribe replied, "Brother civilization. Holes in the cliffs. Or use the natural cave to place the coffin. It's common. It's called a suspensory. There are many of them in the Three Gorges. But like this cliff top hollowed out to place a coffin, it's the first time I've seen you. But since it was used to place the coffin, then this should be a cave." Zhang Wenbin nodded and said, "Not bad. This is supposed to be a tomb. Such catacombs. It's also the first time I've seen you. But it's not the first time I've heard of it. Put it this way. Brother Wenbing, you know the origin of this kind of tomb." Zhao Wenbing pointed to the 5 bronze coffins below. "Take 5 things that the owner of the tomb used during his lifetime, as a relic. They are placed according to the 5 elements. Wood, fire, earth, water. They can represent growth, old age, and death. The soil in the middle represents the safety of entering the soil. That is, judging from the 5 coffins below. This man, all the circulation in the Yang world has been completed. It is in line with the final destination of a person after death." He continued, "But what's the matter? This person was unwilling to die like this. And the corpses of people were used, piled up a gossip map as a funeral. A large amount of yin qi was gathered in this ancient well. It has artificially turned this place into a hell on earth. Keep everyone close here, are unable to perceive the signs of life. All that was left was death. For bronze coffins in the village on the ground. We didn't look closely, judging from the use of the 4 major teachings to protect it. Those 4 should also be one. Again, 4 things from the pastor's life were used instead. The purpose should be for the offspring to worship. Actually, he did it for the purpose of doing so. It's nothing more than trying to tell the poet, 'I'm dead.'" The plagiarist listened to such a large set, not very clear, asked, "Brother civilization, that's what you mean? This man has done so much, just to declare himself dead. If it's dead, it's dead. Why are you still doing so many routines?" Zhao Wenbin smiled, and then he said, "Noisy. Have you ever heard of the 3 realms and 5 elements? The three realms refer to the three realms of heaven, earth, and man. What about the five elements? It refers to gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. In Taoist parlance, there is a way to escape death. That is, jump out of the three realms, not in the five elements. Because of all things in the world, it's all within the scope of the three realms and the five elements. There is life and death. Follow the cycle of cause and effect. What if so? You can get out of the three realms and the five elements. Then this range of transportation cannot be accepted. You can be free. Eternal life. The pump was surprised. He would have been a materialist through and through. But since the Wang Zhuang incident, got to know Zhao Wenbin, his opinion on some things, there was a new change in the beginning, especially coming here. A lot of facts have been told to him. This cannot be explained with science. He asked Zhao Wenbin, "Brother Wenbin, there really is immortality in this world. How could he jump out of the three realms and five elements?" In my opinion, these coffins were not buried all at once. Rather, it is separated. Just before every burial, all need to do a special French performance. This man has 3 souls and 7 spirits. One of the 3 souls is called Taiguang. It is too clear and yang, belong to the day. The second soul is called Shuangling. The transformation of Yin Qi belongs to the 5 elements. The 3 souls are called ghosts. The mixture of Yin and Qi belongs to the earth. If these 3 souls are gathered together, it is a reddish humanoid. Chaozi glanced at Zanbing, trying to find the red humanoid on his body. I don't want Zhao Wenbin to say. Look no further. Ordinary people are naturally invisible. The copycat saw that he was seen through. You can only stick out your tongue. Then he asked, "What about the 7 breaks?" 7 broken, respectively, the lion dog, runestone, Eurasian sparrowhawk, swallow the thief, non-toxic, ash removal, stinky lungs. These 7 breaks are black. Usually represents the situation in your previous life. If it is a reincarnated animal, it's just a brute. If it is a human reincarnation, it's humanoid. Among these 3 spirits, the 2 souls of heaven and earth are always outside. Only the soul of life, to be alone, is to live on the body. Heaven and earth are destined for 3 souls. They don't get together for a long time. 7 spirits, 2 heavenly spirits, 2 spirits, and 3 human spirits. Yin and Yang correspond, never separated, and always suffer from others. The 7 spirits of the human body, they are all under the control of the soul. The soul of life is also called the soul of man, or lust soul. This life of a man on earth, it was born from the casting of this soul of life. After the soul is cast, will be their own energy. It is distributed over the 7 chakras of the central channel of the human body, thus forming the 7 spirits of man. Soul is unique to the human body. After the death of a person, the 7 spirits dissipated, and the soul departed from itself. Our lives have come to an end. And that is the end of it. Zanbin finished speaking. Suddenly, he pointed at the 7-star sword in his hand. Yell. Come out, soul of life. You shouldn't be in this world. The pump was so accrane by Zhao Wenbin, subconsciously hit a torrent. I saw that Zhao Wenbin had put away his originally relaxed expression, looked at the sarcophagus with a righteous face. The sword was already pressed against the sarcophagus. This sudden change caught Chaozi off guard. Not ready for action yet. Suddenly, there was a thump. Listen carefully. The sound actually came from the sarcophagus. Zaven took a step closer with the sword in his right hand. It was only half a meter away from the sarcophagus. The thump of the knock. The moment is even more ordinary. Because there is no irrigation per se. So just take one more step. Naturally, you will be able to see the difference. The 2 winked at each other. The copycat is on his body. Moved to the other end of the sarcophagus. Suddenly, the soldier's left hand shook. A pitch-black thing threw it at the copy. The copycat catches it with both hands. Pull hard. A boom came out. It turned out that he had received an ink fountain. The other end of this grinding bucket is in Zhao Wenbin's hand. The plagiarist clasped his right wrist. Here, Zhao Wenbin stepped on the grinding line under his feet. The grinding line is stretched straight on the coffin. The scribe wrapped the thread around the handle of the dagger, punched hard at the bottom of the coffin. In this way, he was stared into the gap between the sarcophagus and the ground. Then he threw the grinding bucket with the thread to Zhao Wenbin again. After Zabin received the grinding bucket, took out a tangwood nail from the gossip bag. It is also after a few turns. Insert it into the bottom of the sarcophagus at this end. Then get up. Pull the grinding box and tie a cross knot. Threw it again. And so on and so forth. Finally pulled out 3 grinding bucket lines on the sarcophagus. Each pull one. The tapping inside was a little louder. Until the last line is finished. The sarcophagus began to shake a little. Zavin took out another piece of rune paper from his bag. It snapped towards the head of the sarcophagus. The shaking immediately became several times smaller. Then the 7-star sword thrust towards the ground. I only heard a rubbing sound. The sword was plunged into the solid stone. Even the tapping stopped. The sword stopped at this point. I couldn't help rubbing my hands and said, "Hey, Brother Wenbing, it seems that this soul is no match for you. That's just 2 times, it's honest. Now it's time to cross the street and see what's inside. If you want to talk about this movement, it's really gone." But Zhang Wenbing has always been a Taoist priest. It's not like a plagiarist, it's an archaeology. The most exciting thing is the switch. For him, if you enter the earth, it will be safe. Since lying here, explain the man, the strife that has left the world. But this is an exception. Follow the process of everything before and after. Zhang Wenbin identified. The Lord in this did not only not want to leave, and he didn't leave at all. Zhang Wenbin said, "Ugly, go over and take a look." The ugly man thought to himself, no matter how great your ability is, now it's not that the master has let the civilization Gao clean up. I'll pull you out now. Look at what kind of bird you are. I thought to myself, mouth hard, take a step forward, fight with spotlights inside the sarcophagus. I almost didn't scare the money to death. Because the man lying inside the sarcophagus, it's himself. The money let out a scream of horror. The guy in his hand almost went off. Zavenbing realized that it was not good. Hurriedly asked, "Ugly, what's wrong?" The ugly man had retreated to the back of the tomb at this moment, holding the stone wall behind him with both hands. It is tightly clung to. The legs have already begun to fight. Seeing the ugly man, Zavin didn't answer. Thought, there must be some terrifying corpse in this coffin. Just took a step forward. Get ready to see what happens. Don't tell me. Don't go over. It was the scribe who was calling him. Zavin stopped. Asked, "What's wrong with you? What the hell is in this? I'm afraid you'll be scared like that." The copycat recalled the scene he had just seen. "I believe that I am not dazzled." Whispered, "I saw a man lying in the sarcophagus." Zhao Wenbing said suspiciously, "Alone." This copy is archaeological for him. He was a soldier again. A man can make him like this. The copycat raised his hand, trembling slightly, pointing to the sarcophagus. "Soldiers, don't believe me. I saw the man lying inside. It's me." Zhao Wenbing's mind was clear. What's going on? It's too late to see. An arrow flashed to Chaozi's side, seeing Chaozi's eyes. At the moment, it has gradually become blurred, spread out. He grabbed Chaozi. The water is shaking in the shake. Can, don't sleep. Open your eyes and look at me. Can. But how can it be superb? Now it's like a mess. With the body of the stone wall, slowly slide downward. The eyelids are also getting heavier. Wait until he's fully seated on the ground. The eyelids were also closed. Only in this moment, Zhao Wenbin was already aware of what was happening. The life of the plagiarist is gone. 3 souls lost 1 soul. That's why I passed out. It's that big. It can be under the eyelids of Zhao Wenbin. Unconsciously hook a soul. I really have to make him careful about this ability. Zhao Wenbin took out a small bottle from the gossip bag. A little cow tears were poured out. Wipe it on your eyelids. Open your eyes and take a look. Except for empty sights. Only the copy and the sarcophagus. Not a single trace of the same. The plagiarist was only like this after looking at the sarcophagus. Go without saying. The problem is definitely there. But at the moment, Zhao Wenbin didn't dare to guarantee it. Go up and take a look for yourself. What will it be? Yes, it will be found. The plagiarist lies inside. Or a corpse. Or one. A question that made him even more afraid to think about it. In case he sees himself. Lie down in it too. I thought about it for a while. Zavenbing seems. Still haven't found a good way. The biggest headache is, that's the way the opponent is. Lying there silently. It's waiting for you to do it in the open. But what about you? But there was nothing they could do with him. Zhao Wenbin turned his head to look at the money. At this point, he was in a coma. I don't want to think of a way to do it again. He could die at any moment. Suddenly, Zhao Wenbin noticed the spotlight on the banknote. To see what's in the sarcophagus. There must be a premise. Because of this tomb, it can be said that the 5 fingers are missing. Since the money said, what if he didn't have the light? Right. Then it is invisible. The corpse remnant came just now. Isn't it like this that has lifted people's coffins recently? Did you swagger out again? Have the mindset of giving it a try. Zavenbing turned off the spotlight on the copy and put the heavenly master talisman that he gave him before. It was found on the copy. Gently place it on your body, so that even if something happens for a while, you can also resist it. Then he turned off his spotlights. The whole catacomb, suddenly there was darkness. Zavenbing struggled to adjust his breathing. Leave yourself in a state of complete relaxation, to feel the subtle changes around you. Human hair is actually the most sensitive, especially in this kind of place. Zhao Wenbin's hair that has been established. At the moment, there was a slight movement. Immediately turned out the big seal in the Chinkuan bag, horizontal to the chest. An invisible pressure came over me. Before he could make his next move, a sweet throat, eyes closed. I didn't hold my breath. Plop. A mouthful of blood spurted out. He heard a snapping sound. I guess I saw it on the sarcophagus. Wait until he opens his eyes again. A red figure was floating in front of him. But right now, Zhao Wenbin feels that he is imprisoned. No matter how hard you try. I can't move my hands or feet, just as the figure approached itself again. A crying gunshot rang out. Sparks were shining in the tomb. Shotguns ready to play steel balls. One flew into Zhao Wenbin's arm. He was in pain. Subconsciously, there is no arm. I found myself able to move. Don't dare to do a moment of stay. One to turn over. Flashed to the front of the coffin. With his right hand, he pulled out the 7-star sword. Zhuoxiong's cry was heard below. Brother Wenbin, Kaon. What's wrong with you guys? It turned out that this Zhuoxiong was looking at the equipment under the cave. I saw that there was no movement for a long time. He tilted his head and looked up. Suddenly I felt a heat on my face. Something fell from above and fell in his face. Reach out and touch it. Just look at the spotlights. It's blood. Zhuoxiong used to be a scout. For human blood too. Naturally, he was all too familiar. He realized that something might be wrong up there. Shouted below for a long time. I didn't see any reaction. I'm trying to climb up the rope. The spotlight suddenly swept to the position of the circular bronze circle. There was a white corpse poking out its brain. I'm trying to get into the hole. The feelings were left behind just now. So he raised his hand and shot it. Smashed the corpse to pieces. Also woke up the Zon soldiers inside. Zavenbing didn't have time to explain. He could only roar down in the tomb. Don't come up. Look up. The red figure was now gone. It's just that the sound of knocking began to come from the sarcophagus again. The sound of this percussion is really strong and weak. After listening for a while, Zhang Wenbin didn't find the law. The sound was clearly coming from the sarcophagus. It's just that both the rhythm and the strength seemed to be chaotic. Just knock it on. His heart was disturbed again. Zhang Wenbin thought to himself, we must not sit back and be forced like this. He could feel it in the dark. The copycat's breathing has become weaker and weaker. I don't want to think of a way to do it again. I'm afraid everyone will have to give an account in this hellish place. Zhang Wenbin was about to get up. When he was about to get up, suddenly there was a sound in my ears. Hip-hop voice. Intuitively, he sensed that it was sent by a copy. He asked quietly, Plagiarism. Plagiarism. You're awake. No one is worried. Susu's voice continued. It was as if a man was walking gently towards him. Zhang Wenbin took a step back. The body was already leaning against the stone wall. Asked again. Plagiarism. How not to speak? Still no one responded. Hear that footstep. It seemed to be only 3 meters away from him. After Zhang Wenbin touched the knob of the tactical spotlight, throw the big seal in your hand to the right. Then the knob was turned on suddenly. The spotlight then lit up the entire pastor. What about pumps? At the moment, he was holding a shotgun expressionlessly. Looked to the right. The great seal was still rolling on the ground. Almost at the same time, the plagiarist found out that he had been fooled. Turning his head and rushing at Zhang Wenbin is a shot. A phantom flickered before his eyes. This shot was empty. It turned out that Zhang Wenbin was in a coma. Fear of a gun misfire deliberately closed his insurance. Just now, he heard the whisper of the insurance being pulled apart. Deliberately used such a trick to attack the West. At the same time as the plagiarism was shot, the Zaman dodged to the left with all his might. He understood. The man in front of me. It's not a bill at all. It's a walking corpse attached to its soul. The money was shot short, unbounced immediately, and his right hand went toward his waist. At this moment, it is really the money himself. He will understand. That's all there is to it in the gun hall. It's a pity. He's not money after all. Just take advantage of such a gap. Zaven pounced on him. To say how strong the body is. Naturally, Zaven Bing can't compare with the unity of the scouts. But this time, the attention of the copycat was the bullet in his waist. He was attacked again by Zaven soldiers with all his might. With a bang, the two fell to the ground. Roll into a ball. After all, the strength of the copyist is still a few points greater than that of Zonbing. Not for a while. Zhang Wenbin is gradually at a disadvantage. Was crushed by He Chao under him. Immobile. He Chao at this moment. It's not that anymore. A masculine young man with a smile on his face. Rather, a complete devil. Both eyes are red. Eyeballs burst out. Self-teething. Clear crystal burst out on his forehead. A fierce look. Both hands pinched Zhao Wenbin's neck. Looks like it was to kill him. Zhao Wenbin was pressed under him by the plagiarist at the moment. The neck was stuck by him again. If it weren't for the breath, it would still be held in the chest. I'm afraid that I have lost the opportunity to resist. He fished like a fist, slammed into the plagiarist's face. It's like hitting a stone. No response. Gradually, due to lack of oxygen and loss of physical strength, he didn't even have the strength to clench his hands into fists. You can only mess around in the air. He also grabbed several blood marks on his arm. Just when he was about to despair, the right hand grabbed something. With the will to live, he exerted his last strength, slammed it into the back of the plagiarist's head. Smack! The plagiarist fell with a sound. Zhao Wenbin struggled to push away the copy's body. Looked down. He was holding the Great Seal of the Heavenly Master Treasure Thief in his hand. One of the Great Seal's feet was stained blood red. After passing 2 breaths, he hurried over. Look at the unity of the super lying on the ground. The kid had a hole in the back of his head. It's bleeding right now. Zhao Wenbin hurriedly took out a small burden from the Chinkuan bag, wrapped with a small hand towel. When opened, it was filled with incense ash. Pour out a handful and press it into the wound of the banknote. And he tore his own clothes. Got a bandage around his head. Get it all done. Zhao Wenbin was already exhausted and collapsed. I haven't had a good rest since Jingtsuan. Looked at He-Ichian who was dying. Zhao Wenbin struggled to get up again, almost supporting his body with a 7-star sword. Don't let yourself fall. Zaven shuddered and took out a red sandalwood burner from his pocket. This incense burner is just the size of a steamed bun. It's been years since I looked at the style and materials. Zhao Wenbin carefully placed the incense burner in front of the sarcophagus. There's a red cloth underneath. Then he took out a brocade box from his bag. This brocade box looks like a rouge box for women. It's just that the material is also good rosewood. It looks like it's the same set as this incense burner. Zhao Wenbin looked at the unconscious copycat on the ground, sighed. The moment the box is opened, a strange fragrance wafted out. Even the burning bear below can smell it. Spirits lifted. Fatigue and restlessness for days. It's all gone. I couldn't help but sigh. Curious and special fragrance. Inside the box lay a bead the size of a pigeon's bullet. Oval shape with an all-over pitch black sparkle in the light. Send out a box with exactly that. The Pearson carefully removed the bead. Put it in the incense burner, and there is a green monk. Then he fell to his knees with a thud. He kowtowed 3 times to the censer, sat on his knees. After speaking, he knocked his head 3 times hard. When I look up again, the smell of the incense burner made Zhao Wenbin feel that he couldn't resist the temptation. Involuntarily open his mouth. Take a few big breaths. The body was still sore, visible, and back to normal. I feel that there is an endless amount of energy all over my body. Sighed in his heart. It's really a rejuvenating incense. If you want to talk about this rejuvenating incense, don't say that he can take a few puffs today. That's a blessing. How many ancient emperors searched for this country? We will not hesitate to devote the power of the whole country. The origin of this township is not small. According to legend, it was during the reign of Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty. There is a country in the western regions called the Country of Yu. In order to resist the military strikes of the Huns, had no choice but to form an alliance with Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty. Fight the Huns together. At that time, Etsuno Kuni wanted to show his sincerity. Bring your own national treasure to a total of 3 soul chests. dedicated to Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty. About the soul chest. Dongfang Shua's 10 weeks in the sea. That's how it was written. Anti-soul country. Silk tomb property. As big as a bird's egg. Black as losing a kidney. The smell of the countryside is hundreds of miles. Dead bodies on the ground. Smell is alive. Legend has it that Dongfang Shua once got a piece of purple incense. What about him? The study of incense is quite profound. Once burned a piece of dreams. Vanilla in a dream. Meet Mrs. Li. After burning the soul incense, resurrect Mrs. Li. Of course, it's just legend. As for the rejuvenating incense, is it really able to bring the dead back to life? No one knows. Those ancient emperors. Naturally willing to do it for this thing. Fight to the death. There's a piece of it. Because of serendipity, the ancestor of the soldiers who were pierced, Lin Jingyang, got it. Fengrua Jibao is regarded as the treasure of his own sect. It has been passed down from generation to generation. To Zhao Wenbin's master's generation, if it weren't for being hidden in the cowshed by the Taoist priest. It was almost taken away by the Red Guards. Zhao Wenbin was a child. Once when master was drunk, I've heard him say this piece of incense. It is the treasure of their heavenly righteousness. It is said that it was Lin Chengyang back then, stolen from the stolen gold mage. I'm afraid it's also because I lost it. I couldn't find any evidence that he did it. I had to find a reason. Drove it out of the corpse door. But when sober, that incense burner and box, it's all by that wind priest. Bear it with you. Put it in underwear. Never human. It is said that this box only needs to be opened. It has to be ignited. Otherwise, it's useless. So I'm afraid I've seen this thing except for the Zaman soldiers. Even Lin Jingyang himself did not know his true face of Lushan. If you know it this time, your apprentice will come out with this thing just to attract a soul. I don't know if he will jump out of the underworld to settle accounts with him. The Xiamen soldier recited according to the Fa Ju passed down by the master. As soon as the words fell, a wisp of black smoke drifted straight upwards. It has not yet reached the height of Zhao Wenbin's forehead. It began to spread out like fireworks. For a moment, the whole cave was filled with this strange fragrance. It's fascinating. It's not at all comparable to the spices of the world. Even Lung Iran and Lao Wang, who were unconscious below, all of them expanded their nostrils with the scent. The breathing rate also increased dramatically. Zavenbing shook his head. And stop breathing. I don't want that box to occupy my mind. After adjusting for a moment, he repeatedly. A column of name box communication goes. The 5 boys returned to the hidden soul. Stupid. Stunned. Just fell. Lying on the ground on the lotus leaf chow, a black shadow loomed. Slowly began to peel out of his body. Ignore the presence of the door. But he went straight to the censer. Fell less than a step away from him. The rejuvenating incense that rises from the incense burner. A trace of it gradually merged with the black shadow. Subtitle Volunteer Yang Qianqian.